state and of our wonderful world and of our nation. It is so important for us to be all servant leaders of conservation and making sure that we bring other people with us. We do a lot of conservation projects, and I mean a lot. We did a couple last week. We're on a, let's see, I think we're doing antelope this next weekend down south. And how rewarding is that to work with the ranchers and game and fish people and see the results that we get. We were working with Terry Klein on the C-Bar-O Ranch in Tonto Basin. What a lovely person she is. And what we were doing is putting PVC pipe down, filling up water tanks, watched them put up the solar panels. Wow, was that very cool to watch. So that not only could their cattle and horses have that water, but also for the wildlife. It is so important for us to all get people involved. We had two of our friends actually came down for that project from Bremerton, Washington. Two retired Navy captains. And they said, we want to give back. That was the second project that they have actually traveled down for. Wonderful. What a wonderful thing to be able to do. It's not only do it yourself, but to have other people come and join you do that. The 00 Ranch in Seligman. We did a project up there, an antelope project, and I love those projects. They're a little bit more difficult because you're taking off the barbed wire off the fence, putting on the smooth wire. Now Tom, the ranch owner, wanted that bottom rung at 18 inches. Typically, Game and Fish says 16. He wants 18, by golly, we're gonna do 18. So we did that. I think it was a total maybe of 3 miles of fence. It was a lot. We had a lot of fabulous volunteers there. He also requested that we bring down that top rung of barbed wire, and I believe it was 42 inches from the ground, and that was to help the deer crossing. How rewarding is that? And what I love then is when we have the biologists and the other people come in the evenings and talk to us about what this work does, not only for the ranchers, but also for our wildlife. My mission in life is to give back more than I've received and connect my head and my heart with my mouth. When I look at the values of Arizona Game and Fish as being making sure that we are attracting the right people and living those values, it's so very important for all of us to know that. I think that one of the things that is really important in the world today in general is hearing a woman's voice. And one of the things that we do know, you teach the women, you teach the family. So it is so important for us to make sure that we are giving back. I remember the first time Al had me in the truck. I'd never ridden in a truck before. I did go out and buy a pair of dungarees, or jeans as Mother called them. And I remember driving out to Chevelon Lake. Gorgeous. And I had really never been beyond Phoenix, Scottsdale area. And so we get out there, and I get out of the truck, and I said, I remember I'm from Southern California, where are the restrooms? And he says, you see that log right over there? You just go hang your butt right there. And he says, I got toilet paper in the truck. I thought, why, I've never dated anyone that carried toilet paper in their vehicle. But now indeed what I do, I always have it in my backpack, and it's my, loyal companion no matter where we go. I have learned a lot. And it's thanks to people like you who serve. It's thanks to people on the Game and Fish Commission. It's thanks to the volunteers for all of this conservation work and other work that is done. So I thank you so much for having me here. I'm truly honored, and I would be blessed to be a commissioner for the Arizona Game and Fish. I thank you so very much.
Thank you. We will now go through the board, and they will ask some questions.
All right.
You have time to answer them. Okay, let's start with Rich over here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Please tell us what you believe to be the 2 most important issues that the Arizona Game and Fish Department may face in the next 5 years.
Oh boy, there are 2 biggies too. Drought for sure is one. And we were thankful and blessed to have the rain that we had this year. It helped, but it's not the solution. We need to really look at the groundwater, and we really need to pay attention to the use of the water, where it's coming from and how it's used. I think the other part of the water issue is to making sure that our waterfowl is being cared for. We look at our sandhill cranes, you know, down near Wilcox. Boy, is that a sight. And we really need to pay attention and manage that drought. I think the second big issue is the population, and looking at the growth of our state and all of the people coming into our state. And again, that's one of the things that I think is really important, is to have the parameters of that, to make sure that we are keeping it contained and reasonable, and also to get those people engaged in the outdoors.
Thank you.
Would you have a question to follow up? No, thank you. All right. Go ahead, Phil.
Thank you, Ms. Sue, for
Yes.
being here. Appreciate it. Can you tell us what experience you have in public policy and how you can use this experience in your role if you are to become a Game and Fish Commissioner?
Yes, public policy. Very interesting topic, and what a broad topic it is. I have done a lot of work in my corporate life as Executive Vice President for Westinghouse Financial, doing exactly that, working with public policy, working with our attorneys, working with politicians, and that sort of thing. The other part of it is that I sit on the NRA Women's Leadership Forum Executive Committee, and we're always looking at those kinds of policies. Now, getting my hands dirty, actually creating policy and doing that, I can learn. And that is something I would be more than open to do. I've always been a lifelong learner. I love learning about those things, and I know that making sure that our policies are well written, and then also make sure that the public is informed about them, is critically important. Is that the kind of information you were looking for with that?
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pat?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A major key to having an effective 5-member commission is having every member attend and participate in every meeting. Given your current occupation or other obligations, are you able to fulfill this tremendous commitment of time to serve as a commissioner?
Thank you for that question, and I've had a lot of people ask me that, by the way, because I am a very busy girl, but I also really know how to manage my time. My husband often asks me, he says, I don't know how you get so much done. He says, you're always involved in so many things between the Marine Corps Scholarship and the outdoor and the projects and my speaking business and everything else. Yes, I have looked at everything that I'm doing, and I know there are some things that I'm going to have to step away from. I will be 100% committed to be the best commissioner that I possibly could be on behalf of Arizona Game and Fish. I've already prioritized, I already have a list, I know who I'm going to tell, and I've had several of them come back to me and say, we're not the ones, maybe you are. So yes, I have. I know how to prioritize, and I know how to manage my time extremely well. Thank you.
Thank you. No
Charlie?
follow-up, Madam
Or
Chair.
would you have a follow-up? Yeah.
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Charlie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Marsha. Good to see you. My first question for you, with the onset of the COVID pandemic starting in 2020, Arizona, like many other states, has seen a huge increase in sportsmen taking to the field. This trend has created increased demand for hunting and fishing opportunities. As a commissioner, what steps would you take to increase these opportunities while conserving our fish and wildlife populations?
I think education is number one, and I think Arizona Game and Fish is doing an excellent job of that with the videos and the opportunities for people to go online. For an example, having Hunter's Ed online now, I think is a wonderful, wonderful step. I also think that we have to, I'll use this word, and I don't mean it negatively, entice people to get involved so that they can become the educators. I know that's one thing that I have done through my Babes with Bullets group. I know, it's a weird name. Women having fun with guns, just saying. And what we do is we get women out there hunting. We even show them how to gut and skin an animal and do all that sort of thing. I think that the education is the biggest part of that we have to do. And I also think that we have to go out and reach out to people that may be the least bit interested. To take someone fishing, to go up to Bartlett, I love to fish, and to really show them how important it is. And I think also a lot of people, especially through COVID, have wanted to know, where does their food come from? How do I fill my freezer? How can I fish and have that fabulous trout from Luna Lake? We have a cabin up in Alpine, in Luna Lake or Nelson or Big Lake. How do I do that? Who can help me? There's several groups that are doing a great job of that, of getting people out in the conservation projects and then training them. This was such a great story. We were on an antelope project. We were up near Big Lake, and we were glassing, because there's a lot of antelope up there, as you know. And there was actually a mother antelope giving birth. And some of these people that have never seen an antelope in the wild saw that happen. And they said, I want to know more. I want to know more. And so they are now members of the Arizona Antelope Foundation. So I think that engagement, that education is critically important. Did I answer your question? Is that?
You did, thank you very much.
Yes.
No follow-up, Sue.
Thank you very much. I have a first question, but I'm going to expand on it a bit due to something else that you brought up.
Okay.
Another concern. It regards the federal-state management interface on the subject of wildlife. That is, Arizona has responsibilities and the federal government asserts other responsibilities. You mentioned the increase in population and the impact that has on available resources. Part of that impact also is increased by federal designations that limit access for hunting, fishing, even management of spruce bark diseases and pine bark diseases and fire and other issues that impinge on the health of the resource and the ability of the public to use it. Could you elaborate on that subject, please?
I'll do my best. There was a wonderful letter that Arizona Game and Fish sent to the government, to the Biden administration, expressing their concern, and then they also had some ideas on how we could move forward with some of these things that have come up. I think that we have to understand, for an example, the increase in population. We just have to be really careful on how we interact with the federal government. We have to be clear, we have to communicate well, we have to be able to resolve conflict on the spot, we have to become even better listeners than we are, and we need to question. We need to find out really what is it that is wanted. Also, I think one of the things in today's communication in general, but especially in the government, both state and federal, they do not look at the consequences of their decisions. When you look at the state of Arizona, where I believe it's 38% of our land is already in the monuments and the tribal lands and that sort of thing. And I know when they first put out the 30-30, for an example, they were 30%. Of course, they've changed the name of that now to, I believe, America the Beautiful. And we just have to be really firm in our commitment to protect our state and to protect our lands and to make sure that our voices are heard and that we don't upset them, but we let them know where we are as far as what we need to have our state move forward. Did I answer that?
You sure did. Good luck not upsetting them.
well, there's that.
Pardon me.
I do, you know,
All right.
little
Okay.
sidebar, I do have a book called Toxic People, Decontaminate Difficult People, right? Yeah, just saying.
Well, I think we will go on from this point, and this time I'll start with Charlie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My second question for you. Arizona has faced several attempts in recent years to curtail the take of mountain lions and bobcats. This issue has also challenged the role of the Commission and the Department in managing Arizona's wildlife through science-based conservation, with the risk of wildlife management being decided instead at the ballot box. How do you view this threat, and what steps do you feel are important for the commission and department to take in the future to protect their authority in managing Arizona's wildlife?
I think first off, thank you for that question because it's a very serious one. The North American model of wildlife conservation, showing us the 7 principles of the ethical take of animals and management of our wildlife, is very important. And I'm not sure that all sides involved with the mountain lion and the whole cat situation, they really understand that. The other thing that I've truly noticed is that oftentimes opposing sides will make it emotional instead of factual. So I think going back to that North American model of wildlife conservation, looking at data and making sure that the science is behind it. We have some of the finest biologists in the world here working for Arizona Game and Fish. We need to figure out how to take that data and make it, I'll say, palatable for people that don't necessarily want to hear that. They want to make it on the emotional side. So I think it's a very thin line that we're walking with that, but I think the messaging is really the important part to make sure that we understand who's the audience. Who are we speaking to? Now, if you're speaking to people like me, a true conservationist, or if you're talking to someone that is not, the terminology and the verbiage has to change. You have to make sure that you're aligning with it. The other thing that I know is when you look at some of the deprivation that has happened with, for an example, the desert bighorn sheep because of the cats. It's very serious. So what do? Do you take out a herd of sheep, or do you protect the cats? You know, there's a real weight and balance there. And again, I'm going to go back to the science. We have to go back to the data and the science and make sure that that is right and true. Is that close?
It was great, thank you,
Okay.
appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
No follow-up.
Pat? Kurt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would you please expound on the concept of fair chase?
Yes. Fair chase is the ethical taking or harvesting of wildlife, including fish. So what that means is that you are the hunter and that you're making sure that you are not positioning yourself so you have an advantage over the wildlife. So for an example, I personally don't like hunting in tree stands. I just don't like it. I'd rather go out and walk around bird hunting or whatever it is. I'd much rather be out amongst them. Now, it's not illegal to do that, but for me, I feel better if I'm down on the ground with the animals. I also think when we look at fair chase, we really need to train people of what it means. It means ethical hunting, ethical fishing, and that you're abiding by that North American model for wildlife conservation and the laws of the state. And the problem is, from state to state, as we know, it changes. Did that answer your question? Thank you.
All right. Bill?
Thank you. I have a question, then another question. First, do you have a current Arizona hunting and fishing license?
I do.
Okay.
I have a
very good.
pioneer license.
Excellent. You don't look
I'm
nearly
getting
old
on my
enough to have a
age now, aren't
pioneer.
I? Yes. All right, indeed.
Okay. Now, my real question is, what would be your long-term goal and your short-term goal and your priorities if you were to be appointed as a Game and Fish Commissioner?
Short-term goal would be the best student ever, to learn as much as I can with the current issues that the entire state and the commission is faced with. I'm a voracious reader. I love learning new things. And by the way, I just finished a book called Fuzz by Mary Roach. If you haven't read it, it is entertaining and it's very interesting about game and fish commissioners throughout the world. It's fascinating. So I love doing that. So short term would be my education. Long term, and I mentioned this, my mission is to give back more than I've received and connect my head and my heart with my mouth. If I can help this state be better at managing some of these issues with the conservation within our state, I'm living my life's mission. I know we've all been put here for a very specific reason. I think I figured mine out. So that would be my goal, is really to give back as much as I can. I'll do more conservation projects. I don't know how we could. We do, a lot. But just getting my hands dirty and understanding and sharing and educating would be my long-term goal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Marsha, how does the public trust doctrine for wildlife pertain to the Arizona Game and Fish Commission?
The public trust doctrine, where we look at our wildlife, our fisheries, our off-road, off-highway vehicles, we look at our waters and everything. I think it applies to them by giving us a parameter. And I think that's what all policies and laws do, is they help us with a parameter and an understanding of what a lot of smart people in the past have put together for us. So that doctrine is something that I think we all need to continue to take a look at, to understand, and to share. It goes hand in hand with that North America model for wildlife conservation, of understanding there's a lot of laws and policies and rules and regulations that are already out there. We just need to make sure that they're understood and that we share that with other people. Does that answer your?
Thank you.
Yes, my pleasure.
Thank you very much. And I'll proceed to my second question,
All
too.
right, thank you.
Related to some other things that you've said, there is a committee on the board, the actual commission, that is the landowner, lessee, sportsman's cooperation, and it builds the trust between those entities. That particular group has increased access for the public to lands where access is through private property. And the commission and the department have worked very hard for the last 10 plus years, actually more like 20. I do date back a ways, to increase that access. But it requires taking into consideration the fact that, as you earlier mentioned, a very large part of Arizona is managed by federal entities, many federal entities, under various federal designations of primitive areas, wilderness areas, study areas, and every kind of other designation. We have an increased population, and we want to see as much access as possible, because having lots and lots of wildlife and no access to it is not a very constructive outcome, let's say, either for management or for the public's appreciation of this opportunity. So how would you work on that issue of the building cooperation with the landowners?
Well, first off, I would love to be on that committee, because that is a big, big issue. And when we look at, as you said, the increased population, it's so important, and I'm going to go back to that education word, is making sure people understand, if you go out and use it, leave it like you found it. We have friends that go up and use our cabin, and that's all I ask them. When you walk away, when you lock that door, just make sure it's exactly as you found it. Our conservation projects, I know that's one thing that we do a lot of, that we go around to the campsites and say, leave it as you found it. I don't know exactly what the correct answer is for that, because there's a lot of speculation on it, as you know right now. But one of the things that is happening, and I like listening to the commission meetings of other states, because they've got some good answers. Montana is working on a committee right now, very similar, where they've got ranchers, they've got private landowners, public landowners, they've got hunters, they've got the public, and they've all come together, and they have ground rules. We're going to be better listeners. We're not going to interrupt you. You know, we're going to make sure that we really consider. I may not agree, but I'm going to at least consider and keep that open mind to hear what you're saying. I think there's more research that needs to be done, and I know the locked gates is an issue. And maybe one of the things is to have the ranchers be part of this and to find out, what do they see as a solution? What does the public see as a solution? Because I know in negotiation, there's going to be one common thing that we come up with, and I don't know what that little chit is, that we can say, okay, let's start here, because we all agree with this, that our lands need to be protected, that our wildlife needs to be protected, and that people want access. Great starting point. So where do we go from there? Brainstorming and finding out. I don't have the answers, but I know that Montana has done some great work on that, and I believe Utah is as well. Because of course, with all of the parks that they have an issue with that too. So that would be, I think communication is my baseline on that. Does that answer it?
Mhm. Yes, I'd like you to know that committee and that work was probably pioneered by Arizona. And I served on that committee when I was on the commission, so it's very much in operation and very much including the ranchers, the sportsmen, and conservationists. And they do great work, and they have greatly expanded access. So thank you very much. Does anyone else have anything they would care to comment? No, thank you very much. We appreciate your presentation.
And I want to thank you all very much. And truly, I would be honored, I would be blessed to be considered to be the next commissioner for Arizona Game and Fish. Thank you very much.
Thank you.